I think after Arya and I go, I'd like to also hear from Len and Libby in terms of what changes they see for themselves after having been a part of this wonderful conference of these wonderfully spiritual beings and activists, if there's any change in terms of what they're doing in their work. So I'd like to put a plug in for that.
Sounds fair.
Okay.
First of all, again, as Dan mentioned, the diversity, and from the pictures, you also got a sense of people really wanting to connect. And so that eagerness to connect, I really felt that. What moved me especially was the pictures of the music. I'm assuming that was music we were seeing, and how much for me music just opens up so much. And I know, Dan, you can certainly speak to that. And so I have done a lot of listening to music of other traditions or other cultures, and by myself here, listening to world music, or sometimes I'll go to a concert, like Arya and I went to a concert of Indian music from the Metas we're having. I would love to see people from all faiths sitting and listening to each other's music and just being in that audience and being part of that participatory where all of our hearts are open. And I think that is such a means of opening ourselves up and allowing each other to connect. And so I would like to see more interfaith music experiences, and not just me and my group listening to somebody else's, but that we are all sitting there listening to each other. So that's what I came away with.
Is there any new window to your own life where you might apply that or activate it or animate it in your community or for yourself?
I don't know yet. This just occurred to me just at this very moment. So something to think about. And maybe it's something we can do through service space. I don't know. I think that would be wonderful.
Can I add a quick comment there, Wendy?
Yeah.
One of the highlights of the entire Parliament for me, and has been actually for the last 4 Parliaments, is the Sacred Music Concert that they held at the Tabernacle. And what was the highlight of the highlight, you're going to like this, Arya, was a guy called Alan Bachman, who happened to know Shlomo Carlebach. And he created a song that about 150, maybe 200 children sang from all different religious traditions. They all came together on this stage from every conceivable religious, spiritual tradition that you can imagine, all dressed in their traditional garbs, ranging from, I think, maybe as little as 4 years old up to maybe about 13 or 14. And they sang they actually dedicated it to Shlomo Carlebach, one of his famous, I think it was Niguns, one of his famous Niguns, which you probably know. Something, I think I was like, la 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 la. You know that one?
Da 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 da.
Yeah.
Da da da
Yeah.
da 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 da.
And that was it. And they had everybody stood up. And they sang along with the kids for 10 minutes, standing ovation for the kids, and sang along with them while they all sang those words. So that was truly a moment of great transcendence and the power of music to lift us out of our minds and into our hearts. And I wanted to make one other comment. I think the big change in the decision-making process at the Parliament is that instead of making decisions based upon the head and the intellect, a lot of the decisions that were made at the Parliament this time came from the heart. And I think that was, I think that's one of the turning points in this new transformation that we're going through. So I just want to share that. You should have been there. You would have loved it.
Yeah.
REA, go ahead.
Wow. A lot to reflect on. So in terms of the imagery, there are sort of two kinds of imagery that I felt a connection to. One was Len and Libby, where it was you two and your two teammates, your Palestinian partner and your Nigerian partner, I guess it was. And it's sort of the four of you there, you know, and it gave me the real sense of bonding among the four of you. And then the other images that specifically connected for me were the really big ones, you know, where you see the big group in the concerts, or just something of the scope and diversity of the people who were there. And in terms of my own life, my own practice, I tend to be my comfort zone is with a small group of people. You know, I would like to go with a small group of people. Maybe I can join you guys next time. I don't know. On the hand, some friends were actually inviting me and urging me to go this year. And I was thinking, well, what am I going to do if I'm there by myself in this massive conference? How is that going to work for me? And I avoided it. And I'm thinking that maybe there's a way that I can re-examine that. How do I do both the small group and the large group kind of practice in my own, in my own life? And then further thoughts. Andrew, I was very taken with your comments. I was really unaware that you had been going there every time recently. And it's really interesting for me to hear your perspective on how you've seen that evolving from people identifying themselves as, I'm in my faith and I'm going to tell you all about my faith, to a much more of a commitment of, the interspiritual, from interfaith to interspiritual. That has a particular issue for me because Wendy and I are part of a team that's, leading next week's circle, which we've been calling the Interfaith Circle. Didn't realize that was so old paradigm, but that's what we've been doing with the service-based community. And for me, the service-based community has been part of stepping into a much larger community. There are tens of thousands of people who engage there under the leadership of Nipun Mehta and family and friends. Charles Gibbs is also part of that. Charles was also at the conference. Charles, an Episcopalian priest who was one of the founders of URI, United Religions Initiative, and maybe you're familiar with them, Andrew.
Sure, of course.
So, it's a great privilege to work with Charles. I'm thinking maybe I'll talk to Charles and Nipun and maybe saying we should transition our name from interfaith to interspiritual.
Thank you, and REA, very much.
And just one more thing I want to reflect on based on what you had said, Andrew, and that is that both Charles and Nipun have been talking to me about, my headset has been, let's each be in our own religion and let's talk to each other and let's have understanding between religions. And Charles and Nipun have been talking more the language that you're talking, Andrew, that there are so many people that are identifying themselves as on a spiritual journey. And yeah, I was born Muslim, or I was born Christian, or I was born Jewish, whatever it is. But I don't totally identify myself with that group. I have my roots in that, and I identify myself as a human being on a journey reaching out to other spiritual human beings. So that's something that I'm kind of refocusing my glasses on.